relations amongst Central Asian and other countries. If I may comment briefly, let me make a snapshot of the dynamics. Russia today, following the sanction it has been subjected to by the Western world, is thinking of building an important corridor which will end in the Indian Ocean. It will touch, of course, all the interested and involved countries, but it will be something that will make life easier for the Russians to trade with China. China is funding great works with its Belt and Road Initiative, and it is aiming at consolidating and enhancing its trade relations with a great number of countries. The Belt and Road Initiative is at the basis of port, trail, and logistic infrastructural projects, which, of course, touch upon the Middle Corridor, which is one of the corridors which is of particular interest for Europe and our country. Middle Corridor, which needs to be finalized, but this is happening. A few numbers to tell us how important this corridor is. In 2022, vis-à-vis the previous year, trade increased by 250%. In 2023, we've seen a further increase in traffic by 90%. This tells us how important this strategic corridor is. Before the year 2022, connectivity on the road was based on the northern corridor between Europe and Asia through Russia. This corridor has become less and less important following the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. Our countries have announced during the G20 in New Delhi what will be the new India, Middle East, Europe corridor. It will connect the Indian Ocean with the Mediterranean from Mumbai, crossing Saudi Arabia. It will reach important ports in the Mediterranean. And India, Saudi Arabia, and Arab Emirates, European Union, and other 3 single countries in EU, Italy, France, and Germany, participate in the project. We will develop a network of rails, ports, and even it envisages the laying of digital cables and a pipeline carrying green hydrogen. Of course, China is not taking part, oddly speaking, and we have to be careful because China controls these traffic lines because it controls terminals in the Mediterranean and the Piraeus port in Greece. Through its Chinese colossus, which deals with maritime transportation and logistics. Our European EBRD defined the Middle Corridor the most efficient way and sustainable to have trade between Europe and Asia. If you want to see this development, new important projects are based on the Middle Corridor, as I said, ports and rail tracks. The Middle Corridor, therefore, is becoming not only a road, a corridor, but an interconnected network. There is much economic and political interest in it, and this is why this conference is necessary. ISIA had already organized an important conference on the Middle Corridor, but today, with our authoritative contributors, we will be able to have an even better picture of the situation. So I'd like to thank you all once again, your guests, and I have been asked to read a contribution from Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of Italy, Cirielli, who unfortunately cannot be here because he, at the moment, is engaged elsewhere, and in fact in Kazakhstan. So I would like to read you his message. Dear ambassadors, honorable colleagues, guests, I would like to thank ISIA and in particular its Secretary General Domenico Palmieri for the kind invitation to this important opportunity to understand the situation which I would have liked to take part in. I'm in Kazakhstan to co-chair the 9th session of the Intergovernmental Group Italy-Kazakhstan on the industrial and economic cooperation between our countries. In November, I will take part at COP29 in Azerbaijan, where I will meet Minister Bayramov. As you can see from my agenda, this is a show of the link between Italy and Central Asia. Today, connectivity between our two countries and peoples is defined by great challenges and infrastructural opportunities. I'm referring to connectivity seen in the widest sense, from infrastructure to port, streets, rails, and the green and digital transition. And I'm also referring to immaterial connections, which is training, research, and culture. The approach that we intend to follow with all of you must be seen as a far-reaching partnership promoting shared development and a political, economic, social, cultural, and security dimension. This approach characterizes the new strategy of the EU, the so-called Global Gateway, in a perspective of mutual advantages, both for the EU and for your countries. The actions that the Union is promoting consistently with our G7 priorities within the working group called Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment has to do above all with physical infrastructures for greater connectivity. The main example is the Middle Corridor, a multimodal corridor which is competitive and sustainable, which will be increasingly a driver for development and integration amongst our markets. I'd like to recall the investment programs in the sector of critical raw materials and infrastructure for renewable energies. Azerbaijan and Central Asia have a strategic role, not just for our country, but for the whole of Europe. Over the last few years, your countries have shown to be the most reliable contributors to our energy security and helping us do away with Russian supplies. To conclude, it is a question of programs, perspectives that have huge relevance, which confirm how opportune and timely this seminar is. And I wish you the best success. Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs Cirielli, whom, of course, we thank.
Grazie, Sergio.
Thank you very much, Sergio. Let me say that Minister Failla is not here. He has a flu, but I know he has been following us and will be following us on streaming. Mr. Indeo, our analyst.
Allora, buongiorno a tutti. Anzitutto volevo ringraziare ISIA per avermi invitato, per avermi dato questa enorme opportunità. Scusate, metto il tempo perché il tema che trattiamo è talmente vasto e talmente interessante che rischio di sforare. Allora, dicevo, ringrazio ISIA per l'opportunità che mi ha concesso, ringrazio il pubblico presente. Cercherò quindi di presentare, di dare il mio contributo per questo convegno di oggi riguardo ai corridoi energetici, analizzando gli stessi da una prospettiva comparativa. Quindi ovviamente noi sappiamo che i corridoi infrastrutturali, i corridoi di trasporto, quelli che oggi attraggono l'attenzione dell'opinione internazionale, in realtà hanno avuto un impatto nell'opinione pubblica a seguito del conflitto russo-ucraino. Quando ci si è resi
impact after the Russian and Ukrainian war, we realized that these corridors went through these areas and that an impact was created by the war. But so there was interest for alternative corridors, but some existed already. The Belt and Road Initiative was one of them, and the Middle Corridor was already there, which is one of the segments of the Belt and Road Initiative. So basically, the perspective is the following: finding alternative routes, but this mirrors a need for all nations, i.e. diversifying routes, which is not necessarily linked to the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. I know by experience Central Asian nations and Caucasian nations need to find alternative corridors because this has to do with the characteristics of landlocked countries, therefore, which have the difficulty of having an outlet on the sea. This is not necessarily linked to the Russian-Ukrainian war, which is what drew the attention to these alternative corridors. We have instability in one of the most important checkpoint ports, Bab el-Mandeb, which is a hub from China and trade towards Europe. There are tensions that highlight the need to look for alternative routes. Amongst all these transportation corridors, with the exception of the Belt and Road Initiative, which we all know, which is a through line in my presentation, there's something more to be said. I will focus our attention on three main corridors and other corridors which are functional to the working of the three main ones. And I will explain what I mean. As Mr. Divina was explaining, the first corridor is the IMEEC, India, Middle East, Europe corridor. It is a project which is new because it dates back to September 2023 and was devised in New Delhi. We have the participation of European nations, the United States, and Middle Eastern nations such as Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. It is an intermodal corridor bringing together sea, land, and rail transportation. It would lead to Piraeus in Greece. And basically, it will go through the Haifa port in Israel on the Mediterranean. But this is something I needed to say, the fact that the Piraeus port is a fact that it is in the hands of China. This is one of the conclusions. However conflictual these corridors may seem, they need the joint participation and the collaboration of most countries for the final aim of ensuring transportation and navigation security so that production countries have access to markets. So we have two corridors which include digital networks, electricity networks fueled by renewables and green hydrogen. We have an agreement between India and EU for the exportation of 10,000 tons of green hydrogen, which is produced with renewables, 10 million tons, which is what the EU needs to import through the Repower EU and through the bilateral agreement between Germany and Saudi Arabia. These are very interesting prospects which highlight that the main targets is developing alternative routes to the Belt and Road Initiative, which is the one you see, both on land and on sea, but it is already evident that part of the maritime Belt and Road coincides with this new IMEEC route. So we have to be very careful because I'm going to speak of the strengths of these corridors, but also the weaknesses, the potential weaknesses of these. With the global gateway, Europe has the possibility of increasing connectivity, developing new partnership with the Gulf countries, as happened in 2022 through a new cooperation agreement, and connectivity with India, exporting manufactured goods from India. And, of course, the Gulf countries are crucial. Look at their position in a geographical sense. We can diversify, therefore, routes both terrestrial through Saudi Arabia or alternatively through the Red Sea. As I was saying, there are some buts. All these countries adhered to the Belt and Road Initiative, and as of 2013, China invested $90 million in the Belt and Road Initiative. All these corridors are not exclusively used by some countries, but according to me, the need is to diversify. So it is not important to adhere rigidly to a single corridor. We may adhere to several corridors because our aim is to diversify exportation routes and reach the shared goal of having access to markets. Obviously, there are problems connected to the economic feasibility of this project. I had some quotes to mention to you. The infrastructural corridor apparently cost $100 billion. Saudi Arabia has already earmarked funds, but one of the preconditions is that these corridors may be built, may be implemented only in a condition of stability. Stability in terms of investments and regular traffic and the transportation from the producing to the end country without any interruption. We see a situation of tension that may hinder these corridors, especially because the Abraham Agreement has been suspended, those between Israel and Saudi Arabia, considering the tension in the area. And another problem is the lack of participation from other fundamental actors, Turkey, Qatar, and, in my opinion, Egypt, which may join because an agreement between Saudi Arabia and Egypt may envisage that one of the green hydrogen pipelines may have its exit in the Mediterranean and transiting Egypt.
Another corridor which is even older because it goes back to 2002 and which has been almost being completed is the North-South corridor. Interregional corridor, and this is multimodal as well because we have land and rail and sea transportation. And here, initially, there were two participants, founders, India, Iran, and Russia. And then India, of course, needs a safe access and secure access to European markets. And this will probably allow the country to achieve this goal. This is very important because it develops through three different north-south routes. One is goes through Azerbaijan and Iran. Another one is a maritime route because it crosses the Caspian Sea, and then it will connect to the Iran railway system. And then another one which through Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, before getting to the Iranian outlet harbors. And so we said that there is a coincidence, if you like, or common goals amongst the participating countries. And then another very interesting factor, which is very important, is that these projects may serve as also and use also trans-regional and trans-local rail routes, which are very, very important because they are acting like segments which may connect one part to another. For instance, you may see here the Kazakhstan, and then which with these different connections, and then reaching the main corridor. And so this might ensure transportation of cargo from the northern Russia to the south, and this certainly should go through Azerbaijan, and this should happen should be completed around 2026, 2027, and it's more over 7,000 kilometers, and for Russia the transportation time would be considerably reduced, and this is more convenient transport route. And of course, the rail network and the land network in Italy has been developed. But I wish to draw your attention onto the question of ports. Why? Because as well as, or in the same way as China is developing its port of Qatar, which is one of the segments, Chabahar, has been invested into in Iran. What is the strategy? They are both beyond the Hormuz Strait. And so in the case of stopping or a closure of the Hormuz Strait, this would ensure the continuity of transportation. And so India is investing in Chambar and in the harbor of Haifa. And so the cargoes might be, or freight might be, directed towards this harbor, and in this way access new markets. And so another premise, so when we talk about the competition with the Belt Road, why do we speak about such a competition? Because the Pakistan-China economic corridor, China is planning to invest $100 billion. And this is just in Chabar. Chabar is absolutely necessary, but needs more further investments into infrastructures, considering that China is typically very pragmatic in its approach. So, of course, this corridor is vulnerable to the international sanctions, which involve two of the main partners being Iran and Russia. But this is requires as a prerequisite the stability, as we said also before. So the perspective might be to develop other alternative routes. That's why I was talking about the intersection of the several routes. So, for instance, Iran, Bandar Abbas corridor, which might develop yet another alternative route. So I don't see any competing approach here, but I think that cooperation is possible. And Iran, in particular, is the country that has a direct rail network to Afghanistan. And so they might add a passage through Pakistan in order to have more or greater or more usable outlets for the cargoes in general. And so, and then we have been talking about the flagship multimodal of this corridor, which is the flagship for EU. According to the World Bank, we hope that the trade through the middle corridor is tripled, and 10 billion euros are going to be invested by the European Union for the development of this intermodal corridor, which is, however, just a segment of the Belt and Road, because China also is interested in developing a passage through Kazakhstan. But this is not in competition, but it is a complementarity, if you like, so through Kyrgyz and Aktau. But this corridor instead is parallel. It goes through and crosses the Caspian Sea and the Azerbaijan. And going to the European markets. So in this case, Azerbaijan would serve as a hinge, or if you like, as a bridge to connect Italy and the European Union to all this. Azerbaijan already is cooperating with the EU. Sorry, I am accelerating because I am running out of time, says the speaker. And so I see here the picture of international cooperation. And once again, I have noted that there is a tendency in political terms or policy terms that for these projects to stimulate and encourage the creation or development of smaller sized local or regional projects. For instance, in 218, we have one of these segments of the middle corridor. And so we talk about the middle corridor from 2018 to 2024 because this project may encourage all these countries to cooperate amongst them and to invest in these initiatives. And in this case, for instance, Azerbaijan, in order to export to the EU. And then there are other small segments and short segments which are also connected to other corridors like the Lazuli corridor or the one going through Afghanistan, and then the role of the Caspian ports, so developing not only the land routes but also the port infrastructures. All this allows a concrete diversification and a cooperation for trade, although there might be and may remain in the some political or geopolitical problems, but we have seen that so far the Belt and Road Initiative actually has had very good results in terms of infrastructures. And in terms of cooperation, the latest initiative of the Middle Corridor, and not only in terms of freight transportation, but also for the transportation of strategic resources like uranium and green hydrogen, in order to develop all this, to transport all this towards EU through Kazakhstan, for instance. And this might be very important for the development of the nuclear French industry. And with this, I am finished, and I apologize if I have exceeded my time limitations.
Now I'd like to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Simbayev, Ambassador of the Republic of Kazakhstan in Italy.
Grazie.
Thank you very much for this invitation to this very important event. I'd like to thank President Morgoni, Senator Divina, and Vice President Palmieri. This institute has created a good platform to discuss pivotal and topical issues on the global agenda. This, of course, is a follow-up of our March dialogue, and I'm very happy for this opportunity to express our perspective on the global architecture on transport corridors. In the context of globalization, and of the heightening of international transportation corridors play a vital role in connecting different countries and even continents. These are strategically important pathways which contribute not just to the economic growth, but also to strengthening cooperation at interregional level. In this context, Italy and Kazakhstan play key roles in the system of transportation corridors linking Europe and Asia, and they also play an important role in developing international trade and international logistics. Italy, with its strategic ports and its transportation infrastructures, is an important link for the export of products from Asia towards European countries. Italian ports can handle 300 million tons of goods per year, a significant part of which comes from Central Asian countries, amongst which Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is placed at the center of the Eurasian continent and is an important hub for the transit on the routes between China and Europe, and, of course, beyond. 13 international transit corridor across our country. Out of these, 5 are railway corridors, 8 are road corridors. According to the relative data concerning 2023, the total volume of transit traffic through my country reached 32 million tons, with an increase of 21%. Rail transportation cargo trade has reached 297 million tons, plus 3%. And in cargo, that was cargo, but in maritime transport, the volume through our ports was 7.2 million tons, with an increase of 11%. The Kazakh companies export mainly towards European countries. In the field of civil aviation, national airlines transported 13-odd million passengers, with an increase by 21%. Amongst these air companies, I'd like to quote the Neos company, which opened a direct flight between Milan and Almaty. We should underline that Kazakhstan should become a power hub for transportation and logistics. We give special attention to projects such as the Trans-Caspian International Corridor, the North-South Corridor, and the Belt and Road Initiative, in which all Central European countries are involved to a greater or lesser extent. The potential of Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Iran rail corridor is enhanced. It is the shortest way for us to reach Persian Gulf countries. Of course, this is for Asian countries. We believe that the building of Trans-Afghan Railway is very promising, opening access to Southern Asian markets. As to cargo and road railway, the traffic between China and Europe is characterized by the shortest corridor, with cargoes being transported between 10 and 12 days. We have been undertaking more projects in transportation, and we envisage by 2030 to upgrade 11,000 kilometers of rail and to build more than 5,000 kilometers of new railway tracks in 2025 in order to increase transit from China. We believe we will undertake a trail project to build second tracks on the Dostep-Moenti segment. This is the most advanced inroad between Kazakhstan, eastern Kazakhstan and Europe, but it is the corridor connecting the center and the east of Kazakhstan itself. With this line, transportation will increase fivefold, and the capacity of transportation towards Europe will significantly increase. I can say that at present we have laid 608 kilometers of the second track, and this will be completed by 2025. In 2027, a new rail line will be implemented, the Bakhte-Ayagos line. Bakhte is a place on the border between Kazakhstan and China, And this is a hub where railroads from north and east of Kazakhstan can connect with this corridor, which I said is on the border with China. Thanks to the launch of this new line, cargo transportation from and to China will increase by 20 million tons per year. Next year, we will build the Tarbazan-Makdarau. This is on the south of Kazakhstan and will connect China with Central Asia and the countries of the Persian Gulf. This line will significantly increase the potential for Kazakhstan in terms of transportation. Cargoes to Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Iran will be made faster thanks to this new pathway. Dear friends, because of the geopolitical situation, the architecture of transportation corridors has meant that there is one best way, the Trans-Caspian corridor. And according to the results of a research study, as Mr. Divina was saying, and according to the European Investment Bank, this corridor has been recognized as, at present, the most sustainable and efficient. We believe that this corridor may be of interest for Italian companies and companies of other countries, so as to diversify the way in which Italian exports may be delivered and other EU countries' cargo may be delivered to Asia. Thanks to this corridor, more than 80% of cargoes from China to Europe are transported through Kazakhstan. The transcontinental pathway allows cargo to be transported 2 to 3 times faster than on the sea. The delivery time for cargo along this corridor, the middle corridor, from Langjiangan in China to the border of Turkey amounts to 20 days odd, but we can also mention that the delivery to Georgian port amounts to 12 days, and through the Suez Canal calls for between 25 and 30 days. So the transportation over the corridor is much faster. 21 million tons are transported through this line, and our ports are crossed by international corridors, north-south, as well. In order to increase the flow of goods and container traffic along the Trans-Caspian routes by 2025, we plan to create a container hub in the Arkau port, launch the logistical center in Sarjak, and we mean to rebuild the moorings of the equipment of unloading over our ports. This will increase the load capacity in Kazakhstan by 10 million tons, including the ability to transport containers up to 300,000. To develop Trans-Caspian routes, we are working to create a Navy national industry based on the Caspian Sea. We would like to ask European companies and organizations to take part actively in developing these infrastructures and to help diversify supply routes for raw materials. Together, we can develop and undertake projects to improve transportation infrastructures, sustainable development, and digital integration, which will contribute not just to economic growth, but also to strengthening security and the stability of our regions. Thank you for your attention.
Grazie.
Thank you so much, Excellence. And before turning the floor to Excellence Saburi, I wish to turn the floor to Honorable Mauro Del Barba. First of all, thank you for having me here, and I wish to thank President Morgoni. I wish to greet all of you, Excellencies, and who come from countries I am very well familiar with, also because OECD countries. So the today's topic in particular is extremely important and relevant, not only for trade, as we know, but we all know that through trade, the relations amongst and between countries are enhanced and improved. So the barriers which may make the world much more dangerous than we used to know may fall down. And the other day, I was in Baku in a representation of Italy to talk about this theme of corridors, which are strategically relevant and very important to our country in this framework. So let me just add that in addition to the theme of infrastructures, which are absolutely necessary to realize the kind of trade that we have in mind, it is also important to develop and improve the structures that we know or we think are absolutely necessary. I'm talking about the rules, especially in Europe, which all the countries have to fulfill with. I mean, the countries who are within, are in the framework of the 2030 agenda. And so it would be a serious mistake to realize and to build the infrastructures and then realize that we have created some formal or bureaucratic bottlenecks, which may impede or hamper the free circulation of our freights and cargoes. And these are all things I know very well, because in Italy I am the president of an association of industries which have as a goal the introduction of sustainable measures and infrastructures. And with this, I wish to thank you all, and also for accepting me here, but also for participating in such an important meeting. Thank you. We certainly will bear your suggestion in mind. Now, the floor is to His Excellency, Mr. Saburi, Ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Iran in Italy.
ISIA, abbiamo capito.
I believe in the name of God and merciful. First of all, I wish to thank ISIA for today's meeting.
مسیر چین، قزاقستان، ازبکستان، ترکمنستان، ایران، ترکیه و اروپا عبور می‌کند و یکی از کریدورهای کلیدی و استراتژیک برای اتصال شرق به اروپا است اشاره کنم.
I'm happy and proud of being here today and taking part in this important meeting on the opportunities to optimize the transportation routes, and in particular the east-west trade routes and corridors. Let me focus on the southern corridor, which connects China, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Turkey up to Europe, and which is one of the key and strategic transit routes connecting the east to Europe.
یکی از مزیت‌های برجسته آن تکشیبه و ریلی بودن کامل مسیر است. به این معنا که هیچ گونه ترکیبی از روش‌های حمل و نقل مانند ریلی دریایی در این کریدور وجود ندارد و کاملاً بر خطوط ریلی استوار است. این ویژگی خاص امکان انتقال سریعتر کالاها و کاهش هزینه‌های عملیاتی را فراهم می‌کند.
Such a corridor can play absolutamente an essential role in cutting down the transportation times between Asia and Europe. The only problem is that most of it is on a single track, but this means that it doesn't allow for any mixing of transportation routes. And this feature in particular allows for a faster transportation of goods and less operative costs.
تنها در مرزهای ورودی ایران از جمله مرزهای سرعکس و اینچه برون نیاز به تعویض بوجی وجود دارد، اما زیرساخت‌های لازم برای این فرآیند کاملا فراهم شده است و با ظرفیت روزانه 200 واگن آماده خدمات دهی است. این موضوع باعث می‌شود که کریدور جنوبی بدون نیاز به توقف‌های طولانی کارآمدتر و سریعتر باشد.
Another very important point here is that the standard of the charts of the Iranian and Italian railway network is different, and therefore this will be necessary for such an infrastructure to work properly.
Forse c'è un problema col microfono?
I think there is a problem with the microphone of the translator. Just a second. Sorry.
Do questo qua.
Thanks. As I was saying, as I said, at the border points, and the infrastructure for this process is entirely available and can serve 200 cars per day already, so without having to wait for a long time every time. Sorry.
اسکلاها برای تخلیه و بارگیری مجدد کالاها از کشتی به قطار است و که این فرآیند زمانبر و پرهزینه است. افزون بر این کاهش سطح آب دریای خزر که یک مسئله محیط زیستی جدی و خطرناک است بر بنادر و اسکلاهای همه کشورهای حاشیه دریای خزر تاثیر گذاشته و مشکلاتی همچون ضرورت جابجایی مکرر اسکلاها و انتقال آنها به داخل آب در نقاط جدید وجود دارد.
Whereas alternative corridors, which already exist, have a problem and therefore they need to have extensive infrastructures at ports and moorings in order to allow for loading and unloading from ship. It is still costly to cross the Caspian Sea waters, and this is a difficulty for the ports and all the countries which look onto such a sea. And so the moorings will have to be moved to areas where there is a sufficient water level. And this means that this is a limitation in terms of the volume of the ships crossing this sea. And this means an increase in a number and costs of such ships.
تا از خطرات پایین آمدن سطح آب در اسکله‌ها جلوگیری کنند. این موضوع موجب اضافه شدن تعداد کشتی‌ها و بنابراین افزایش هزینه‌ها می‌باشد.
Actually, the translator had already translated what the ambassador was going to say, so she won't be speaking now.
با سرعت بالا منتقل کنند. کل زمان انتقال کالا از چین تا اروپا از طریق کریدور جنوبی به طور متوسط 20 تا الی 25 روز طول می‌کشد. در حالی که در سایر مسیرها به صورت واقعی و نه صرفاً در تئوری و روی کاغذ بیش از 60 روز است و این موضوع در یک بررسی ساده کاملاً مشهود بود و قابل صحت سنجی می‌باشد.
The southern corridor, on the other hand, can transport faster goods thanks to its integrated structure. And so the transportation time is on average 20-25 days. And on other routes instead, to make a comparison, more than 60 days are necessary.
به این نکته اشاره کنم که کمیته مشترک با همکاری کمیسیون اقتصادی سازمان ملل برای اروپا UNECE و سازمان همکاری اقتصادی اکو تشکیل شده است. این کمیته همزمان بر دو کریدور ترانسخزر موسوم به کریدور شمالی و کریدور جنوبی آلماتی استانبول تمرکز دارد. اخیراً کشور بلغارستان نیز به این کمیته پیوسته است و پیشنهاد می‌کنیم که ایتالیا نیز به این کمیته ملحق شده و ضمن کسب آگاهی از پتانسیل‌های هر دو کریدور از ظرفیت‌های بی‌نظیر آنها بهره برداری کند.
Infine, finally, I would like to mention the creation of a joint committee with the cooperation of the Europe Commission with the United Nations, UNCE, and also the cooperation of the Economic Organization, ISIA. And this committee is particularly interested and focused on the two Trans-Caspian corridors and on the Almaty-Istanbul southern corridor. And recently also Bulgaria has joined this committee, and we encourage Italy to do the same. In this way, we will have the opportunity to take advantage of the enormous potential of such two corridors.
بالقوه این کریدور را به طور کامل مورد بحث قرار دهیم.
Esprimo. Let me express my availability to carry out technical meetings with Italian experts in order to discuss more extensively the potentials of this trade corridor. Thank you all for the attention.
Grazie, Eccellenza.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and we will take due account of your offer for technical meetings with experts. I'd like to give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador of Azerbaijan, Mr. Aslanov. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank, first of all, ISIA, President Divina, and Mr. Morgoni, Mr. Palmieri for having organized this event. I believe that this is the second event devoted to connectivity between Europe and Asia and globally. I have an English text. I'd like to start then speaking English now.
We will have today obviously will contribute to a better understanding of the regional realities. And now when we as a country is on the let's say middle corridor, which today connects Europe to Asia, and our colleagues here also described the situation, the roads, and what is the plans for future in order to make more useful, make more attractive these corridors. First of all, the advantage of the geographical location of Azerbaijan, which is situated between Europe and Asia, in the middle between the two continents, allows us to play an important and crucial role in order to make, to be connected Europe to Asia. And, but of course, the physical availability of infrastructure was utmost important, because you have to invest to develop your infrastructure in order to allow to have this passage of interconnectivity through your country. Azerbaijan is heavily invested in that sector for many, many years, And now, when we look at our railroad connections and highway infrastructure, we can see that our investments and our efforts now is giving back its results. So this is a crucial part in order to invest, in order to have more attractive, let's say more eligible connectivity. You have to invest in local infrastructure. But as we build our connection in order to make available Asia, connected to Asia, first of all, we modernized our railway infrastructure. What we had in Kazakhstan that we complete, let's say, Trans-Kazakhstan Railroad in 2014, we did our part of the job. We completed the Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railroad, which Professor Indeo also gave the special attention. We just finished it in 2018. So this part of the connection is functional, it's working, and very useful. When we saw the growing cargo volume crossing our country, we started also to invest in expanding our neighbor Georgian segment of Baku-Tbilisi-Kars. The territory of Georgia is considered most important link on the middle corridor as well, because there are two main routes along the corridor from Western Georgia: sea road to the Black Sea and the land road to the Republic of Turkey. In terms of connectivity, the international, we call it International Trans-Caspian East-West Middle Corridor. We call it Middle Corridor, is a key component of the larger Belt and Road Initiative and plays a crucial role in enhancing transportation and trade connections between China and Europe. Middle Corridor mainly consists of railway. It's about 4,256 kilometers. And the sea section, it's about 500 kilometers. And it shows that this is the shortest road to go from Europe to Asia, to China, or from Asia, China to Europe. In an alternative to the other routes, we call it the Northern Corridor and the Ocean Road. Middle Corridor is the, let's say, not only shortest, and in terms of the expenses and the time and the security is a more attractive road. The block train, let's say, moving along the corridor, deliver goods from Asia to Europe in an average of 20 and 25 days, which can be considered one of the main advantage of the transport corridor. According to the experts, estimates the annual potential of the road is 10 million tons or 200,000 containers. The four countries from Central Asia and Azerbaijan, now we define to uniform the tariffs in order to make even much more easier to float of, say, goods through this corridor. And there is ongoing negotiations, and we're creating the joint ventures with the Central Asia countries. With Kazakhstan, we just create joint venture in order to facilitate the cargo fleet from the ports of Kazakhstan through Caspian Sea, Port Baku, and to Georgia and ports in Black Sea. In order to facilitate, you should, as I mentioned, have the infrastructure and capacity to support the corridor. Azerbaijan, which has the largest commercial fleet, we have more or less 50 ships in the Caspian Sea, and that helps us to improve and to absorb the need and the necessity of two parts, Europe and Asia, in order to make even faster their connection. Let's say at the same time, our transportation projects like North-South corridor will add synergy to the East-West corridor as well. So Azerbaijan is actually participant in both corridors, and most of the transportation and logistic infrastructure with respect to these corridors in Azerbaijan is almost ready. What we are doing right now, we are simply modernizing because the last 5 years, as mentioned my colleague from Kazakhstan, the trade turnover and the use of the corridors are increased a lot. So our logistic and transportation capacity should be addressed properly, these needs, in order not to complicate the flow. But we have no any, let's say, huge aspirations to have all the transport communication in our middle corridor, but we have to be ready, increase our capacity in order to assist this transport corridor. I also would like to highlight that investing in transportation infrastructure, particularly the, let's say, in the seaport, is a very essential for us. Our trade seaport, a relatively new element of transportation connectivity projects, and it will be expanded from today's 15 million tons up to 25 million tons because of the new, let's say, geopolitical situation in the world and the necessity to transport more cargo through Azerbaijan. We are in process of also completing air cargo, let's say, routes. So we are building new airports in order to support the transport fluid through middle corridor. I also would like to say that why the middle corridor is also very important for European, let's say, customers or European suppliers. Because middle corridor between China and Europe, while Central Asia is one of the, as I mentioned, shortest, secure, and economic corridor, then the countries located on the corridor are stable countries, friendly and close cooperative relations exist between them, which is one of the main factors. And the trans-freight turnover through middle corridor in Azerbaijan, this statistic says, was almost 4,800,000 tons in 2023, and now it's almost, according to the statistics of 6 months, it's almost 15% more than the previous year. Of course, to implement such projects, the main issue also to secure these projects, to make sure that the goods comes from Europe or from China will pass the corridor, let's say, in a security, faster, and say in a shortest time. For this reason, I think there is no any, let's say, that as I mentioned, the stability, economic power, and possibility and capacity to invest even more to this infrastructure we have, and we also have great interest from European suppliers to invest. So we can see now the projects that is going on in Central Asia, which also will be a very main, let's say, element to the transport corridor. Now we are, which we are now developing in the country. And I also hope to see more involvement from Europe and European, let's say, companies to invest to the infrastructure in order to ensure more smooth and more, let's say, reliable routes. Because Middle Corridor, Central Asia, through Azerbaijan today is not the, let's say, the thing that we can talk in the future. It's real, it's functioning, and we all can see the benefits. So this is important not only for Italy to be part of this cooperation, and also important for Europe to be part and participate in this cooperation. I'll stop here. Thank you very much for your attention.
Grazie ambasciatore Aslanov. Saluto intanto l'onorevole Alessandro Pagano che ci ha raggiunto in sala e do la parola all'ambasciatore Abbat Faizulayev della Repubblica dell'Uzbekistan.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, welcome to our today's event, and thank you so much, Dr. Palmieri, for ISIA for organizing this today's event, for bringing attention to this issue, to the issue of connectivity, building and developing new transport roads, and raising the visibility of our region in Italy at this stage. I also welcome my fellow ambassadors and everyone else. A lot has been told already, and let me maybe in give some Uzbekistan's input and talk about the transport corridors connecting two regions from our perspective. Well, first of all, during this nowadays increasing geopolitical instability in the world, disruption of supply chains on the mainland and sea routes, it's becoming very urgent to enhance connectivity of transport infrastructures along different ways, east, west, north, south, any, because located deep in the region, and I keep telling it everywhere, Uzbekistan is one of only 2 countries in the world which is double landlocked country, which means that in order for us to get to the open seas, to the open ocean, we need to cross at least 2 countries on any direction. So I would say maybe our country might be one of the least, how to say, in disadvantaged position when it comes to transport routes. In order to overcome this geographical disadvantage, we are taking a number of steps on a national and regional scale. For example, at the initiative of the President of Uzbekistan, His Excellency Shavkat Mirziyoyev, we adopted the strategy for the development of the transport system of the Republic of Uzbekistan until 2035, which highlights several transport corridors in different ways. And in recent years, our efforts have been aimed at actively developing a network of logistics centers and expanding the fleet of vehicles, which creates conditions for the efficient transportation and processing of goods. For the first time in history, together with our Turkish colleagues, we introduced the electronic exchange of authorization forms, e-permit. We also implemented the e-tier system with Azerbaijan for combined air, and road transports. Moreover, we have successfully switched to digital tier with all our Central Asian neighboring countries. As a result, when it comes to specific transit corridors, as I already mentioned it, we are aiming at developing and be involved in different ways. One of them is middle corridor, the corridor with very high potential, especially when it comes to problems in the northern route. And Uzbekistan is becoming one of the very active users of this middle corridor, and in our part it's called Trans-Caspian corridor. In 2022, the volume of cargo transportation between Uzbekistan and European countries more than doubled, amounting to more than 900,000 tons. In last year, 2023, this figure increased by another 21%. As we obtained European Union's GSP plus status, generalized system of preference, our exports to Europe have tripled since 2017 and almost doubled over the past year. Uzbekistan's trade turnover with Italy also increased for 30% in 2023. But at the same time, we also feel limits to trade growth because, first of all, of this limit of transport corridors, of bottlenecks in different transport corridors. I see these kind of events as we have today as an opportunity to voice out, to tell out about the problems, not only about advantages, in order to attract attention of everyone around to solving it. Because, for example, the middle corridor, delivering cargo from Tashkent, for example, to Rome or Berlin along this corridor costs 1.5 or 2 times more and takes longer than land corridors along the northern routes. Why? Because there is a need to intensify the development of the middle corridor. We need to modernize the railway and road networks, expand rolling stocks, increase port capacities, improve border crossing points, as well as multimodal logistics centers and auxiliary network connections in the region. We hope for the European Union's support, especially under the Global Gateway program, in order to develop all this infrastructure. One more route is, as we call it, Trans-Afghan route, which we are aiming at, developing Termez, Mazar-e Sharif, Kabul, Peshawar railroad. Uzbekistan is trying to be involved in developing this route. We have had several problems when it comes to the security and stability in Afghanistan. Otherwise, we see huge potential and interest to finance this route from different international financial institutions. And we see two-fold priority when it comes to this road. First, traditionally and historically, our region was aimed and has been developing ties with the north previously. People-to-people transit infrastructure in economically in any way. Then, over the last decades, China is becoming a bigger and bigger trading partner of countries of the region. But at the same time, we understood that there is a region with 2 billion people market very close to us in the south, South Asia. So there is a natural need to develop transit corridors, infrastructure, in order to be connected closer, because it's quite close. The second priority is the second aim to develop this corridor is because, as it was told, I think, by Dr. Indeo, this is the closest way to open seas, to open ocean. And as we know, maritime cargo is the cheapest one. The middle corridor, the Trans-Caspian corridor, might be the closest one, the fastest one, which we need desperately. But there are also certain types of goods which can be delivered maybe longer but cheaper. We also we are not in a position to choose between one of the trading transit corridors. We are open for all and every other one. So the way via Iran, for example, might be also very promising as far as the land transport corridors will be developed. Now we had previously a good discussion on this topic with His Excellency Ambassador of Iran, discussing, and as far as I know, the currently railroad is being constructed between Mazar-e Sharif and Herat, and there is already, I think, a route from Herat to Iran. So would it be Chabahar, would it be Bandar Abbas, we would be also ready to use these roads because the infrastructure from Termez, Uzbek bordering town on Afghanistan, with Hayraton in Afghanistan, was already built by our railroad company some decades ago. Then, a decade ago, our company was involved in constructing a railroad from Hayraton to Mazar-e Sharif. So we have this road built also by our companies. Now we need to...
Adesso la nostra idea di estendere tutto ciò, quindi non soltanto per il bene dell'Uzbekistan, ma per il bene e l'interesse di tutta la regione, per poter avere una via aperta verso il mare. Quindi vorrei ringraziare moltissimo tutti voi dell'invito. Naturalmente apprezzeremo qualsiasi dibattito su questo argomento oppure altre occasioni di scambio di idee.
Come dicevo prima, l'ambasciatore...
Thank you. As I said, Ambassador Faia unfortunately couldn't attend this meeting for health reasons. Are there interventions from the audience? Okay, I see one hand raised. Dr. Martellotta in particular, who's been asking for the floor. Good morning, everybody. It's for me a very great pleasure being here today, and I thank Dr. Palmieri for inviting me. My main activity is in the shipment and field, and I also take care of all the customs operations. And I wish to answer to what the Iran ambassador said about a possible corridor with Italy. And the Corridor 8, which is an old EU plan or project, might be rediscovered, and which starts from the Puglia Italian town of Brindisi. because in Brindisi there is an interport which is also connected to the railway network, which goes north to the north of Italy and can then connect to the rest of Europe. That's what I wanted to suggest. Thank you so much, Giuseppe. We will certainly take your suggestion into account. Yes. Okay, so first of all, we can, of course, raise the awareness and give visibility to all possible opportunities, even at a political level. But if we were to consider all the interventions that actually were aimed at achieving something similar, we are not talking about a contract, a convention, or a participation. So in the end, we will have, however, a system of networks. We are talking about mainly East-West networks, and Iran is connected both vertically and horizontally. So at the end, we will have a single connection and, interconnection of these networks. Also because there is no intention whatsoever to block any of these networks. So I think that the interconnection of these national and local networks will be beneficial to all countries. And so we have been talking a lot about intermodality and hubs. So many countries might try and make their existing infrastructures in terms of exchange of goods more up to date in order not to actually create choke points. But I think that most countries are moving in such a direction. Thank you. So I don't see any more intervention from the audience, so I would like to turn the floor to turn over to President Mario Morgoni, President of the ISIA. Thank you so much, Domenico. First of all, let me thank all the kind guests who have accepted our invitation of the Italian Institute for Asia, because in this way we've had an audience and speakers extremely high level. And so I also wish to thank Vice Minister Ciriello, who couldn't actually attend, but however, has seen to it that his message could come to us to pay testimony to the commitment that the Italian government is putting into these themes that we have been debating today. And also Mr. Faila, who unfortunately couldn't attend, has been very active to such an effect. And then our gratitude goes, of course, to speakers and first of all the ambassadors of the Iran, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, because let me mention their name, their excellencies, Mr. Sembayev, Saburi, Aslanov, and Fazulayev. And I also wish to thank Professor Fabio Indeo, who is accompanying us along this road. I was going to say adventure, and helping us with his experience and expertise. So in May, we met here, and on that occasion, we committed ourselves to develop the theme of the Middle Corridor. But today, I hope that, or we at least have tried to be to put in practice such a commitment. Of course, this occasion comes at a time when international relations are really struggling with the tensions and conflicts which are ongoing in several parts of the world. But I wish to also mention the Asian and African area. Today, in the number of conflicts which are underway, ISIA has 156 wars being fought at a time. This is the highest number since 1945. Of course, these problems may hinder the exchange and trade of important goods, and they because they fragment, so to say, the relations amongst countries. And this comes after decades of cooperation amongst nations. But I hope that the stalemates that we are seeing nowadays in the internationalization policies, I don't think they will actually succeed in reversing, the direction. So I think that the globalization should and will, I believe, create, to say the least, the conditions for a new form of globalization, but also becoming a factor of stability, coexistence, and well-being of nations. For instance, the agreement on customs tariffs, the GATT, was actually a fruit of such hopes. And I think that the movement of people and goods is absolutely indispensable to ensure general prosperity. And of course, I think that what we have been talking today the interconnection amongst countries may be very important driver for such a development. And also I think that the remodeling of the transportation systems at an international level, and of course this, despite the limitations caused by warfare and geopolitical conflicts, offer, however, the opportunity to reduce costs and increase the productivity. And this is particularly true of the Central Asia, where, we have been told by Sergio and the Vice President and other speakers, a system, a sort of network of transportation systems has been already at least partially developed. And so this is really we call it net because around these transportation systems, many other initiatives are taken which may contribute to the general effort. But this idea and this projects actually started back in time in Europe, in Brussels, but then involving Russia and Iran. In 2012, the Belt Road Initiative started, and then the global infrastructural project started, and in 2023, the IMEEC project for the international trade between the Middle East and Europe. So over time, everything has been pointing to the need of creating and putting in place an adequate transportation network which may ensure fluid movement of goods between Europe and China. But these are just the final points. A lot goes on in between. And the middle corridor was initiated in 2017 with the promoting, to be sure, a closer integration between the participating countries and the GDP of the region that grows by 5 or 15% is proof and evidence of such the results. And what are the quote-unquote fallouts? What is the fallout of such initiatives? So the beneficial fallout, of course. And there is a growth which is estimated and expected to be even greater in the next few years in the light of all the things that have been said today. And number one, the cooperation amongst countries. And here I've some very significant situations have been mentioned by Ambassador Yerbolat Sembayev in terms of the exchanges and the trade between Asia and Italy, and this is certainly doomed to grow in the future. And new proposals and suggestions were put forward by Ambassador Saburi, and also the Ambassador Aslanov did the same and added the theme of the stability of countries and the areas and the cooperation between all the countries included in specific areas. And so even including also the manufacturing system in Italy, for instance. Europe, on the other hand, as we know, and as it has shown with concrete initiatives, very interested into this with the Global Gateway and the Middle Corridor projects. A lot has been already invested, but more investments are expected in the near future. So in this respect, it is to be expected greater investment, to have greater investments in infrastructures, common and shared regulations and technical standards being as well shared and become common. And we've heard about all this. For the Middle Corridor, as far as well as for all other routes that make up this sort of structure of network, as Sergio has also mentioned, the goal, the final goal and the hope is that these transportation routes may become something more than simply trade routes with a greater and greater involvement of the interested parties, so with a greater integration of products and services. So not only what is at stake is also a sort of generalized mobility. And this is, of course, very important for Europe and Italy, first of all. So, expanding our views, we see that trade is also interconnected with the digitization of systems, and this has also been mentioned, systems and procedures which are becoming more and more digitalized. And I think that the ambassador of Uzbekistan, has mentioned this. And then, so in the 42% we have to remember of CO2 emission, however, at present is accounted for by trade. And so, and within this, part of it is accounted for by the trade sector. And so even on these problems, we have to share our thoughts. And so it isn't only a question of strategic positioning or geopolitical considerations here. There are risks to this effect, but risks, I believe, are certainly lower than the opportunities of diffused internet connectivity of the trade system or trade transportation system. Italy means to and plans to play a very important role because because we believe in the good outcome which might that will come from such initiatives. And in Italy we have such bodies participating in the effort, like the National Body for Energy, ENI, and also private companies. And Italy, I think that in this context can be defined as very active. Bilateral meetings at top level have occurred recently. The visit of President of Italy, Mattarella, to Uzbekistan and the debates with President Mirziyoyev, and then also with the President Aliyev of Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, Tokayev, but also the third ministerial conference which took place this year about the relations of Italy with Middle Asian countries, or Central Asian countries. And to finish, allow me to say that in this respect, Italy has a very noble history behind it from the 70s, I would say, because at the time, very far-seeing, far-sighted policies were put into place. And in this framework, this institute, ISIA, is determined to do whatever possible to favor such far-sighted goal. And I wish also to thank Dr. Palmieri, because he is the person who actually is responsible, I would say, and to whom the merit goes of the operational activity of our institute. And I hope that our relations, as we know, are based on cordiality, friendship, and for this we are very grateful to the ambassadors and the collaborators with whom we have a constant dialogue. And in particular, I wish to thank our excellent diplomatic network, which is really very active also, and the manufacturing and productive network of our countries, Italy is mainly composed by small and medium enterprises. And so, and they have a need and they have the desire to have other countries get to know their products. So today's initiative is just one single piece of our work. A lot is being done and has been done, and I hope that we will meet together very soon again. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all for coming along today.
Sergio, ciao. Facciamo una foto, Sì. Con Domenico facciamo una foto con gli ambasciatori?